Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is from a completely different conference than the two conferences that we have covered predominantly on this show. He is a member of the MAC, and that is Isaac Collins, the head coach of Albright College. Before we go any further, thank you if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts at. Make sure you hit that little bell with the like and subscribe thing. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. The only one different is the Instagram page. It's Dingo_talk. Coach Isaac Collins brings 25 years of experience into his second season at Albright. And we're going to talk to him about where the program is, where they plan on going, what the message is for the alumni, what he's looking for in a student athlete, and we're going to get to know the MAC a little bit. So without further ado, this is Coach Isaac Collins. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk, and this week we are joined by Albright head football coach, Coach Isaac Collins. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Super excited.
So, Coach, as we were talking before we started recording, it was a heck of an ordeal to get our schedules lined up and whatnot. I'm glad that we could get you on the show. I'm going to do this like I do every week. I'm going to take you back in. I'm going to take you into the time machine, back into the past for a little bit. We're going to work our way to today. So let's talk about you in 1990. Why the decision to go to Rochester?
Well, I mean, it's a neat story in that the defensive coordinator at the University of Rochester at the time was a longtime family friend. So my cousin had actually played for him. He was a head coach at Aquinas in Rochester. And so I got to know him since I was in seventh, eighth grade. And to know Coach Tags, to say he's a fiery Italian would be, an understatement. But he treated me from seventh grade to the 4 years I played for him the same way. So it was kind of that relationship that had established. But the really sidebar to it is my two older brothers played in a Section 5 championship game at Falver Stadium, and I was ball. So I was just really, I was young. I don't know, I was fifth, sixth grade, whatever it was, but really was like, wow, this is pretty neat, pretty cool. And so now you fast forward to I'm looking at schools. I kind of had University of Rochester on my radar. It really kind of checked the boxes for my mom that she wanted me to go to a really good academic school. I just wanted to play football. I don't mince words with it. Wherever I could play ball, and I went on this tour of visiting schools because I wanted to make sure. So I visited pretty much everyone and their mother. I was out at Albany State with Coach Ford. I went to Ithaca, Buff State. It was the full gamut. So it was on a trip out to visit Albany, for an overnight. The U of R's basketball team was, I think, in the Elite Eight or whatever, and they were playing at Albany. So I'm walking down with Bob Ford. Coming in the other direction is Rich Parinello, the head football coach at the University of Rochester. So he's trying to figure out, one, what am I doing there? And secondly, as he puts it together, you can see the rage in his eyes. He's saying, okay, so let me get it straight. He drives all the way out to Albany to visit, and he has not visited the University of Rochester yet. So when I get home, it's, my mom's like, Coach Patagler's been calling on the hour, every hour. So I'm like, oh, no. So I
waiting for you.
He used some expletives that I won't use here because this may be, kid friendly, but he got after me. And I said, look, I'm going to be playing in a Ronald McDonald All-Star game. I was planning on visiting you guys when I play in that game. And after the game, I'll just stay overnight, So at that point, I knew that, I'd visit all the places. I knew that Rochester was for me. So barring them spitting on me, I'm going to go to the Rock. So I go up, I play in the All-Star basketball game. Afterwards, I get hosted, paired up with a host he's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I'm kind of tired. Let's just get something to eat and we just go back and hang out in your room. So we go to the Commons, we get something to eat, we go back to his room, and I fall asleep. So the next morning, the typical coach, when you got a guy that you're excited about, hey, how did it go? Like he's got all this juice going. So he goes to my host, what did you guys do? I went to my room and he went to bed. And you could see like death over, like he's ready to kill him. So we go in and I sit down with Coach P, and I don't think he had said 2 words to me. And I said, I'm coming. So he's like, hey, you know what? You want to get Chrissy? He goes, let's do this. He goes, I'm going to walk out. And he goes, don't say anything. Just let me handle it. He walks out and he got like the look of death. And like, Chris, like, oh, he's not committing. Like he's going all over. And he was like, so he starts to kind of build it all up that, making it sound like I'm not going to come. And then he's like, yeah, he's coming. He's committed. So Tech punches me, and the rest is history. I had a great experience there. Tremendous institution. Some great people at the time that was there. I had some great teammates. We went on a heck of a run in my time there. So it was really, really neat for me, and just kind of the right fit.
Now, aside from football, why was poli-sci where you decided to go major-wise?
Well, that's even a better story. I'll make it shorter than the last one, though. So when Battaglia recruited me, one of the reasons why I was looking at the Ithacas and the Buff States and the Cortlands was I wanted to be a physical education teacher. I wanted to be a PE teacher.
Okay.
So that was originally, my high school football coach was a PE teacher, and just the typical, you grow up and this would be a great profession to go into. So somehow, and I think he would deny this. So if he sees this, he may punch me again. Somehow he convinced me that I could be a PE major at the University of Rochester. And it wasn't until my sophomore year when they were like, yeah, you can't do that here. So at that point, it was too late. So I was trying to figure out, do I do philosophy? Do I do business? And really kind of settled in on political science, because at the time, I thought I was going to be a lawyer, so I was like, I'll go to law school. And that's what I kind of thought I was going to do.
Now, where we get to 1994, you have what becomes a Hall of Fame career for Rochester. As you said, there was a lot of success with those teams. What is the next move out of graduation?
You just keep hitting the soft spots in this thing, because it's kind of comical. So if you can, I'll go back a year to my junior year. So my junior year, Hobart College hires a new head football coach by the name of Bill Maxwell. So he comes from Syracuse. He takes over the program. Meanwhile, I have, basically grew up. I was a gym rat. I'd sneak in to play with the guys from, as old as I can remember. I was working summer camps there. And at the time that he was, got hired, I was assistant director of summer programs. So my junior and senior year in college, I kind of helped oversee all of the different camps and organizations that came. Mm-hmm. And he just, he did his research, and like he had this vision of how he wanted to build Hobart football. And one of the things he wanted to do was to try to hire someone that could kind of bridge the gap in the community. So what better person to do that than a small town? I was the point guard on the basketball team. Everybody knows the point guard in a small town. I was a quarterback on the football team. Everybody knows the quarterback. I was, the prom king. So everybody knows kind of who the prom king is, And I think, my best asset was I went to high school with the sheriff's son. So that
helps.
Better. So he approached me, as I was getting ready to go back to, finish my, play my senior season. And he says, look, I'm going to have this opening. Would love to, have you join my staff, and if you're interested, I would hold the spot for you until you graduated, so typical 21-year-old, and, you're an athlete, you're super excited, so how do you respond to someone offering you a job? Not the way that I did, which was thanks, but no thanks. Coaches don't make any money. So not only did I turn him down, but I also insulted his profession. So you pretty much, that thing's going to be over. And, long story short, Bill Maxwell was just an amazing individual and was a tremendous mentor for me. But he was 2 things that I tell people. 1, he was very persistent. And 2, he was a really good recruiter. So he did not, let that be the end of our conversation. So I go back for what should have been our best year. We had like 18, 19 seniors returning. And it was a train wreck. We ended up like 6 and something, just over 500, and we're just kind of blown away with all the talent that we had coming back that we couldn't piece it together after going, 8-1, 9-1, whatever it was the year before. And so we play Hobart, and it's like every single weather element that you could possibly have, right? It rained, it snowed, it sleeted, the sun came out briefly, so we have all of these things going on at the same time. And we lose the game to Hobart, who at that time was still a struggling program, 2-0. So I can remember coming in the next day for film and meetings, and I walk into the football suite and I could hear our head coach, Coach Parnell, and he's just using everything you can imagine. Just, I don't even know, I'm like, what is going on? And I don't know if you want to go in there. And I'm like, what? So I walk in. What's up, Coach P? He's like, who is this Bill Maxwell? And what is the nerve that he's got to be calling me to check on you? And I'm like, what? He was like, I don't even know. He just told me he wanted to see, it was a tough loss, and he just wanted to, pass the word on, and he wanted me to tell you something about the offer still stands. So I'm like, and I don't have the confidence, because I was fearful of Coach P, to say to him, oh, he offered me a job. So I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. I ran out of the office. And that seed stayed with me through the rest of my season. And then I came home for winter break, and he really, just kind of put a full court press on and, convinced me to come sit down with him. And, in a matter of, kind of 45 minutes, he had me on the track, which is now almost 3 decades, of, being a college coach. And he really just, for lack of a better term, and I tell the story to recruits, I said, he gave me the analogy of, the job that you have as a coach will impact the lives of more young men than any profession you can go into. And that just blew me away. And I thought about my coaches, and I went back to, my Pop Warner coach, Coach Pasolacqua, my middle school coach, Coach Muffley, right? My JV coach, Coach Spader, my varsity high school, like all of these guys that kind of molded and shaped me, really kind of came to the forefront of it. And I'm like, for the first time, I have an opportunity to maybe do something for others like my coaches did for me. And as I tell everyone, the first day that Bill Maxwell put a whistle in my hand, I couldn't see myself doing anything else, and just been, very, very blessed and fortunate to work for some great head coaches, and, been able to kind of, have some longevity in a very difficult profession.
Now, before we jump into your longevity across the spectrum here, I want to ask, has your coaching philosophy changed from year 1 to now year 25?
29, believe it or not.
Year 29. So and what's part of that? If it has changed, what was part of the progression of your philosophy?
I think that, my philosophy, just because I worked for, some amazing people, and I had some amazing coaches. I grew up in an era which you could probably relate to some degree, like just of toughness, right? Like that Stiller tough, and that was kind of how I was raised as a coach. So my first couple of years in the profession, that's really kind of what I emulated, was just kind of that toughness and getting after guys. And, I had, fortunate enough as I was starting to kind of really climb in the profession, just had some people pull me aside and just say that, look, you don't have to be, Bobby Knight, right? You don't have to like be you, and, stand on the principles and the things that you believe in. And that will be the key to your success, because you engage players, you engage people, so there's no need for you to change when you walk between the lines. Take that with you, so it took me a few years to kind of figure that piece out, but I genuinely have always been passionate about helping people, right? I've been passionate about serving, and I think a lot of it had to do with just what my coaches did for me, the sacrifices they made when, my mom, I was raised by a single parent, so my mom couldn't always pick me up and take me to practice. And, here's my basketball coach picking me up in a snowstorm, taking me to practice and bringing me home. So those were all things that I think were kind of just built in, like, be a giver, right? Be a giver. And I think that stuff really kind of, helped to shape and become to more of the forefront as I got older and a little bit more established. I think of some of our earlier players would say that they liked me, after they got to know me, but those first couple of years were rough. So that really, for me, I think the best way to describe it is I don't think my philosophy changed. I think my delivery changed, and how, I would, speak to players and how I would kind of command the room when I was coaching or when I was trying to develop coaches. Whereas in the early careers, it was kind of like the way people treated me, and it seemed to work pretty good. I listened and, didn't speak unless spoken to. And times have just kind of changed, from even my early days and certainly from the time that I was a player. So I think, that has kind of also added into, kind of adjusting the delivery, but not necessarily, getting away from the true principles of what I believe in.
Now, let's jump in a little bit. I'm gonna throw some of these schools at you. Let's quit. So how long were you at Hobart? Because as I was doing my research, I got 98 to 2000, which is the next stop.
Yeah.
So are you there at Hobart for those 3 years before?
Yes.
Okay.
So I started at Hobart in 1994, right out of college. So I was actually there for, believe it or not, 4 seasons, and then I left at the end of the 98, or I guess it'd be 97. So I was there 94, 95, 96, and 97, and then 98 I left that summer to go to Columbia.
Now, what was the biggest transition from Hobart to Columbia?
Being in the city, getting parking tickets. So many parking tickets. I had to get rid of my car. Learning how to not fall asleep on the train. Because when you are low man on the totem pole and you're trying to work your way up, the head coach, all he cares is, are the cut-ups ready? He doesn't care about anything being broke. So there were times where I slept past my stop and then had to get back on the train. So just adjusting to being, really, for lack of a better term, a small town boy in a truly in a big city. So that was challenging. The football side of it and the hard work, I tell everyone, no matter the level, 24 hours is all we all get, and that's never enough in our profession. And I'm sure others would probably feel the same way in their profession. But that was kind of the biggest transition for me. It just was like, you walked around and you just had big eyes because you were in one of the greatest cities in the world.
So I would be remiss if I didn't say this. You got me thinking of my old football coaches. And then you just brought up that we all only get 24. So before every game, before every practice, he would start everything with, the only thing that we all have in common is time and how we use it. And that, to me, is that we only get 24. So no matter the level, you're all getting the same amount of time. So then you're in Columbia for 3 years.
So two seasons.
98, yes. 90.
Yeah, 99. And then I left and went to
Lehigh. Now, why the move to Lehigh?
Well, it really was, it was tough for me because I kind of, once I figured the city thing out, I really, me and my wife kind of fell in love with it. My wife, actually, she's Dominican, and, she was born in the Dominican Republic, but she grew up in New York City, Manhattan, and the Bronx. So that was part of the reason why I took the job there, because her family was there. So we had our first, child, our daughter. And so I was kind of back and forth because I really, I love working for Ray Tellier. Learned so much. It was a really good staff, but it was a case where, I'm a small town boy and I just didn't know about raising a daughter in New York City, right? Even though my daughter claims to this day that she's a Bronx girl, I was like, you were there for like a cup of coffee. So I don't know, actually a Bronx girl, but it's a case where that played into it. And then, I got an opportunity to kind of go to the other side of the ball, coach on defense. That was
Mm-hmm.
the other. I enjoyed my time as a player, but I think, I think even in college, I hung out with mostly defensive guys. So my mindset was never really in that space. So I really wanted to. I had briefly moved at Hobart to defense, and then when the Columbia job came along, it was an offensive position. There was a chance to coach in the Ivy Leagues, chance to go up to Division I level, great institution, all of that stuff, and work for a great head coach. So all of those things kind of tied into it, but it was still one of those things that just, the coaching profession is crazy. The head coach wanted me to stay. I would have definitely listened, but I
Mm-hmm.
kind of told him, I said, look, if I go and they offer me the job, I'm pretty much out. And he had kind of went to the AD at the time and says, look, if we offer him more money, I think we can get him to not even go on the interview. And in typical fashion, what do you think the AD says? Well, if he doesn't have an offer, why would we give an offer? So I go and the interview went really well and
Mm-hmm.
hit it off with the head coach and the defensive coordinator, and they they end up offering me the job like the next day. And I remember going in to tell Coach Taylor, and he's like on the phone to the AD, and AD's like, AD wants to see you. And I remember going and sitting down, and I'm a young coach, and it was kind of like, hey, let's slide this across the offer across, and what do you think of that? And I'm like, that's a pretty good offer. I wish you would have came before I got an offer. So it was a case where that kind of sealed it for me. It was time to kind of move, and it was an opportunity to kind of get out of the city and be able to start raising our daughter in a more of a suburban environment.
Well, us defensive guys, we're more fun to hang out with, anyways. We're a different breed on the other side of the ball. There's some guys want to score points, and there's some guys that want to stop points. If you don't mind me asking, how did you meet your wife?
So I met my wife at Hobart College when I was an intern. So we had kind of met her first summer on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And we dated for about a year and a half. And then she went abroad, to study abroad. And as they say, absence grows the heart fonder. So it was kind of one of those things that she didn't say it in so many words, but one of the reasons why she took the trip was, you need to think about putting a ring on it. So, at that point, I was kind of focusing on my career, and then I realized when she wasn't around, like, man, I miss her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And she had all of the traits that I believe would make an amazing, football wife. At the time we had kind of a conversation. I said, look, my, profession is, going to move us around. It's going to be, long hours, and there are going to be times where you're going to be a single mom. And, she's the Dominican girl that understands how to be independent. And, I didn't think there was going to be a better opportunity to have someone that, would allow me to chase my dreams and passion of being a college football coach. So we tied a knot, and we've been married now 26, soon to be 27 years. It's crazy to say that, so almost as long as I've been coaching, me and her have been together. So,
well, and you've done some traveling. As I'm looking over here on the, so we went to New York, then we went to Pennsylvania, and then for Pennsylvania at Lehigh. For those who don't know, Lehigh is in Pennsylvania. I should probably clarify that instead of. Then you move on after the 2003 season to Holy Cross, and that's I'm assuming because it was a next step up. You're going to the DC and the assistant head coaching position. What was that experience like for your first time being in the seat?
It was tough because I really loved Lehigh. I mean, I loved the kids. We had built something special. It's crazy to say, we went like 8-3 and they're ready to run us out of town. But I just there's something about being a part of success that I just loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And the head coach at Holy Cross at the time was actually the defensive coordinator at Lehigh. And he's the one that hired me. And,
Mm-hmm.
The backdrop on that is I'm coaching running backs at, Columbia. and Tom Gilmore hires me as his defensive back coach, which is kind of rare, and so I felt a little bit of kind of a loyalty piece, if you would say, gave me an opportunity. We had built a really good defense, coming off the heels of some success they were already having, but we kind of had to revamp it a little bit with some different personnel. So it was really, really hard. And the head coach at Lehigh at the time, it certainly strained our relationship. I think we are over the years kind of got back to speaking terms, but I know he was really hurt because he wanted me to stay. But it was a case where, again, it was kind of a decision, not so much based on money, and jumping to because I got elevated to defensive coordinator at Lehigh to stay. But Gilmore was smart. Like, he knows how I was built. Like, I wanted to be able to have a hand in building the staff. And, unfortunately at Lehigh, Pete kind of had a vision of, what he wanted, and I could sit in at the table, but, to use a Bill Parcells, line, if they're not going to let you, shop for any groceries, right, it's going to be awfully hard to be a real good cook. And, and it wasn't that I thought he would hire bad, coaches or anything like that. It was more of just, you got an opportunity to go somewhere. It was a little bit more money. They gave some incentives that, really kind of pushed it over the top. And, it was a case where you got carte blanche to hire whoever you want to hire. And, I thought that, we knocked it out the box in terms of the guys that we were able to get on that staff. Defensively, Ricky Ronnie, who's the head coach down at ODU, was our assistant D-line coach. Sean Spence was our D-line coach, and he's been with the Giants and, kind of bounced around. And so so I was super excited just that first opportunity to be able to do something like that and to go to a place that had been struggling, to try to see if we can build it, because we had walked into, Lehigh, they were having success. So there were a lot of things that kind of factored into wanting to kind of make the move and make the change.
And then after a year, you go back you're back with the secondary guys. There's another wrinkle. You become the recruiting coordinator at the University of Delaware, which I believe bounces you back up into the FCS, right?
Yes.
That's the other. That one always gets me a little. Not Division I. It was way easier when it was 1A and Division I.
Well,
now sub-bowl and all that. So what was the biggest difference between Holy Cross and the University of Delaware, and why the decision to go there?
Opportunity to coach scholarship ball, was the biggest. Obviously, they were coming on the heels of, the 2 years before, just won a national championship. And, Delaware is a blue chip in that state, right? There's no professional teams, and, coached against them in the playoffs, got tuned up pretty good. So, and it's a funny, side story. So we played them in the playoffs at Lehigh, and, they're giving us the business. And I remember like halftime walking to the locker room, and their fans are awesome. So they learn your names of not only the coaches, but also the players. So, I respond just because this is the way my mama raised me. Like, someone says Isaac, I'm going to turn and say, yeah. So I'm walking out, and there's a fan that says, hey, Isaac. So I turned it. I think it's someone that knows me, because they said it like it's like a term of endearment. Yeah. And I look, and as soon as I look, they were like, hey, I hear Tubby's going to be retiring soon, right? And with the way that you guys are taking a whooping, you might want to think about, joining the Blue Hens. So I just run off. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is unbelievable. And sure enough, a few years later, I'm lining up, as a coach. And the good news is they gave it to me as a coach as well. So it didn't matter if I was on the other side. If we didn't run the right coverage, those fans were on you. So it was really, really just a great opportunity to be a part of a program that had such a rich tradition, got such passionate fans, and recruiting scholarship wise, which was kind of the next step in it, because the Ivies and the Patriots, and the Patriots have transitioned to scholarships, but back then they were really no different than Division III. It was kind of a need-based, financial aid, and I felt like if I was going to grow as a coach, that may be the knock, that people would say, when they interview me, well, you've never coached at a scholarship school, so you don't know what it's like to recruit scholarship guys. And learned a ton of things from Casey Keeler. Was an unbelievable experience, in my brief time with them, but definitely loved Delaware. In fact, I still own a home there. That's how much I love Delaware.
Wow. So before we go into the next couple of schools, and then we're going to get into where you are currently, you've coached and played at you played at a Division III level. You coached at the Division I level all the way through. What is the importance of Division III? Why is Division III special, or what separates Division III minus the scholarships from Division II and Division I?
I think it's the opportunity, and I think unfortunately, the social media game, the rivals, rankings, all of that stuff, it's really just kind of, for lack of a better term, killed our sport, because there's an expectation, that are placed on young people that I don't think should be placed on them, right? The number of guys that, no matter the level I've been at, there's always someone that seems to be higher than you, right? The Nick Saban quote, right? There is no University of Mars, so Alabama's as good as it gets, right? So there's always seems to be someone that's above you. So for guys to kind of make decisions, and you connect with them, and they believe in your philosophies, but when they go to school, they got to answer the bell on that, and I remember recruiting a quarterback at Columbia that had Columbia and Harvard, and I remember our conversations. He would be like, "Coach, my dentist says I need to go to Harvard. I go to the bodega. They tell me I need to go to Harvard. Am I crazy?" He goes, "But he really loved New York City. He loved everything that we were doing." So I think that's the tough part is that a lot of guys miss out on an opportunity to have a great experience. I would love to tell you that, people are correct that the coaching at Division III is not very good, but it's absolutely false. There's tremendous coaching that's going on. There's tremendous development. And I think, what makes the level really unique is that these coaches, at our level at Division III, we will go anywhere to talk ball and to learn football. Right. And we have the ability to be able to, in a slightly different setting, kind of really make a lot of things work, that, some other places you might not be able to do it. So I think that its place is really opportunity, and I know that with all the rumblings of, what's happening with the Power Five and the potential breaking off and where the resources are going to go, I'm hoping, that they understand the good that Division III does, because I not only as a player, but having been a Division III head coach at two different institutions, and the young men that have played for me, the young men that have gotten opportunities to even get into training camps with teams, those things don't happen because Alabama's only got so many roster spots, right? Clemson's only got so many roster spots, and if you walk on there, that's great, and it's great to see those videos, but there's a reason why there's only one guy getting the celebration, right? So you go there and you could lose 4 years and never get a chance to play, or worse, you could go there and next year their walk-on crop is just a little bit better, and now you're cut from the roster. So I just think that the opportunities that Division III, at the purest form, right? And I tell players when I recruit them, I was like, look, I paid to go to school. I paid to play college football, right? How much do you think this means to me? As opposed to if you would have paid for me and you would have and you gave me everything, right? And I just think of it from my kids' perspective. They have a lot of things that I didn't have when I was growing up, and I often tell them that, what? We didn't have that stuff, right? So you need to understand and appreciate it. So that, you can, be a blessing for someone else. And I really think that that's what Division III is all about, right? It's about those opportunities, that, young people deserve. There's so many high schools that play high school football, and for, people to slight it or try to steer guys away from it, it really, really breaks my heart, because I know what it meant to me. And, I'll call a spade a spade. I mean, I've coached at a lot of different places, and there are places that I sit and say every single day, and shoot, I played with some guys that would run circles around you guys, it's at the Division III level, so it's not, it's not as, watered down as people think. There's some really, really good football, and I have enjoyed it, and that's one of the reasons why I'm back at it. It's just the purest form of football. There's no hidden agendas. Kids are playing because they love the game, not because they're trying to earn a scholarship, or I got a scholarship, so I guess I'll do this so I don't lose my scholarship, which can kind of change, from that standpoint.
Well, and that's interesting you said that, because we've had some OAC coaches, we've had some PAC coaches so far on the show, and the almost hostage mentality, like Division III, there are no hostages. You are making the decision to play that. You're going out every day, you're going to class, and then you're deciding, I want to play football. I want to keep playing football. Whereas the Division I guy might be mentally getting to that point where it's, do I really want to play? But there's a scholarship being held up there saying, hey, remember this, here's your tuition money. So like, think about it before. Sub question off of that, I guess. We've also, as we talked to these coaches, we've talked about, the transfer portal, NIL and whatnot. And I find it interesting. The coaches that I've talked to have said in the Division III level, the transfer portal is more D2 guys realizing there's opportunity. And as you said, the opportunities there come down and I hate saying come down a level, but I guess, is that more what the transfer portal is at the Division III level? Whereas in the other school, we're seeing in Division I, I mean, quarterback for USC last week might be UCLA's quarterback tomorrow. Like,
yeah, I think that in large part, that's a big part of it for a lot of guys, especially for the programs now that are having some success. You can build a roster year to year, off of, I hate to use the term bounce back, or guys that drop down as well, but, guys that realize that, opportunity, is more important to them than, just being on the team, and they could serve a purpose and really kind of help, fit a need. We are seeing a little bit, and I think we're kind of in the early stages because I've been here just a little over a year. We're getting bounce back guys that we recruited, that went somewhere else because they thought it was going to be better. And then they remember their experience with us in the recruiting process. So they're kind of calling back and saying, hey, I think I made a mistake, those types of things. So we're seeing a little bit of that. But yeah, I mean, you're definitely trying to get those guys. And the thing I will share, and I think my perspective, on it is because I did coach at different levels. There's some guys that are being taken at Division II that, when I was at Division II, we would not have taken, right? There would have been guys who would have been like, hey, it'd be a good walk-on guy, or that guy would be a really good Division III guy. That's where he should go. So I have a little bit of a different perspective than maybe some coaches, and I see why you're getting more guys that are bouncing back, because it's a domino effect, right? So the Division II guys, have their eyes set on that one AA guy, that FCS guy, right? And then all of a sudden, he gets, sucked up because the FCS guys had their eyes on the FBS guy, right? And the FBS is just poaching each other. So it's, so it's a case where that's the game that you play, is really trying to, figure out, from, year to year what your roster is going to look like, because a guy that has success at any level is going to have opportunity, so if you get, a receiver that lights it up, or, there's going to be someone that's saying, do I take a high school quarterback from New Jersey, or do I take the starting quarterback at Albright that just threw for 5,000 yards, right? Yeah. You can do the math on that. If I'm a coach at that level, I'm saying experience trumps that. So I think, we got to kind of navigate our way through that a little bit. I know that we've found some kids here in the latter part of recruiting that are guys that I do think that, if the transfer portal wasn't in place, they would have had some other opportunities, so we're excited about that. And I think that's where Division III can benefit. But it's a slippery slope, because if you take a guy that's, should have been at an FCS school and he lights it up, the transfer portal next year, you're looking to kind of replace him, So that's something that I definitely, can say from our perspective, is twofold. Yes, we're getting some guys that are kind of sliding back, that realize that, hey, I'm just not getting the opportunity I need, but we're also seeing some of those kids. And I think it's good for, a lot of people hate it, but I think it's good for the sport, for the athletes to have options. we try to do a really good job in recruiting, investing guys, and making their experience such that they don't want to leave us. And I think that that's what everybody should be doing. And I think the portal forces you to be honest, with yourself and what you believe in. And we're pretty fortunate right now that we're not having a lot of guys jump in the portal. In fact, we had more guys this spring in spring ball than we did last year. So we feel like we're making really good progress, and I think it comes down to just the way you treat people, and having a plan and a vision for their success, which I think we do a really good job at the Division III level.
Now, jumping back in to your coaching career, we're coming up on my high school years here, so I'm gonna 06 to 09, you were the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach at the Citadel. Now, what was that experience like? Because that's a military academy, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
what's the transition from Delaware to the military academy?
It was a huge transition, just because it's a different world. And you talk about and I think those years certainly formulated a lot of kind of my organization and core, and tying a bow on kind of my core values, because they as Colonel Crawford, which was became a pretty good friend of mine there. He would always say that you hang out with those yellow bellies too young and too long and they'll get you killed. What he simply means is lack of detail. In the world that we live in, you don't come home, right? And I always kind of clung to that and saying, I know in the game of football it's not life and death, but it made sense to me, right? That you need to be someone that stands for something. One of the slogans I took from the Citadel that I still use with our players here is we don't lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those that do. And it's a case where the lie, cheat, and steal people get, right. It's to tolerate those that do, right. We need to stand for something, and whether it's my buddy, whether it's a teammate, whether it's a classmate, whether it's a stranger, if they're not doing the right thing, we have an obligation as citizens of this country to correct them and help them get to a space where, they're doing the right things. And so that, was really, really, I worked for an amazing head football coach, Kevin Higgins. I worked for him. I started at Lehigh, and then he had left to go to the Giants. I got to work for him again to be his defensive coordinator. Was just one heck of a ride. But the kids, man, and our president was a 3-star general, General Rosa, man, loved him. So got to really kind of rub elbows. Real quick story on General Rosa. So I'm typical coach. You're burning the midnight oil. And I remember all of a sudden, this 6'3", body comes walking through my door. And I'm kind of startled because it's 12 o'clock, 1 a.m. And I'm trying to figure out. Now I realize it's a 3-star general. So I don't know, do I stand up? Do I salute? What, and before I could say anything, he just see the panic in my eyes. He's like, at ease. And I sit down and I'm trying to figure out, okay, why is a 3-star general walking around campus at 1, 2 in the morning? And he said to me, he says, this is before he was, he was going to be named the president, but he was kind of on a sabbatical from Air Force while he was going to transition in. And one of the things he said he was doing was he wanted to walk around campus and see what lights were on. And he wanted to go talk to those people because those were going to be the boots on the ground, right? So those were going to be the people that he knew really cared about the institution and would have some insight. And I always remembered that, just blew me away that here's a 3-star general, that, just is taking over as, the president of the college. And he, strategically, parachuted in and he's trying to get amongst the people to really kind of figure out, what type of soldiers does he have, and get their perspective and to make decisions on, okay, there's some people that have been here a long time. It may be time to move them on because we need to change some of the things that we were doing. So that was just an awesome experience. And those kids, man, you talk about coaching tough kids. If you ever get a chance to coach at a service academy or a military college, man, it doesn't get any better than that because those kids are mentally and physically tough.
Well, and I can't imagine. I have to imagine that the attention to detail when you're at a military academy is there are, I'm not saying there aren't dedicated people out there, but when you're going to the military, I feel like you've decided that your bed's going to be completely made every morning. Everything's going to be ironed, so then you spend the 3 years at the Citadel, and then we move in to the head coaching role. Now I want to make sure I have this right. Is it Widener first, then Seton Hill, or is it Seton Hill first, then Widener?
Widener first.
Okay.
Widener was Widener's my first head job.
And Widener is in the conference that you are. So this is when we get to your 2022 year, you come back to the conference. So what was the experience like the first time around in the conference with Widener?
It was amazing, just because I was a first-time head coach, and really, to be honest with you, I had at that time I had no aspirations of being a head coach. I really was planning on. I love being a defensive coordinator. I love just having my side of the ball, coach my kids. I love recruiting. I worked for a great head coach that spent most of his time on the offensive side of the ball, so it didn't get any better than that for a defensive guy, right? He's not meddling in what you're doing. Really kind of grew there spiritually. Kevin's a Christian coach, and really kind of taught me how to bring my Christian beliefs to the game of football. Which up until that point I kind of kept separate. I went to church with my family, but when I walked between the the lines, as my players would jokingly say, "You're like the Tasmanian devil," So I had to kind of balance those things out, and Kevin really kind of helped me shape that. Part of my personal and professional life, which got me to a space where I thought about up until that point my career and how I've helped head coaches build programs and been able to recruit some really good players for them and kind of maintain order, and bring some discipline. And it was kind of, I got just a random phone call that, hey, Widener's open. I really had very little knowledge of Widener other than it was just outside of Philadelphia. And I knew that in the late 70s, they'd won a couple national championships, but, not much, and I just kind of jumped on the internet, and kind of, Googled them, and it's like, it's in a pretty good location. I recruited Jersey. It's not too far from Lehigh. So I had in my mind, I'm like, hey, this could, could be good. So I send my stuff in, not thinking anything of it. And, probably 45 minutes after I sent it in, I get a phone call from the search firm that was conducting the search, which was really neat. And went through that process and, really just, when I got offered the job, I remember coming back home because, this is something I would not recommend you do. Is don't go to your wife or significant other and say, hey, we're going to leave the beach and we're going to go to Philly. Because that typically is not, that doesn't sound right even saying it right now.
Listen, my girlfriend edits this show, and I think if I made a suggestion of leaving the beach to go north, I don't think that she would. I think she would tell me I could leave. You take you wherever you want to go. Go ahead. So God bless your wife.
Yeah. No, I remember in the beginning of the story. Now I told you that I married the right one, and she packed the family up and came up north and was a great first lady for us at our time at Widener. And it was an amazing time. We built a program relatively quickly. We were able to recruit some of the right kids, and we convinced some of the kids in the program to kind of buy into what we do. And it was really, really neat to kind of watch it take off. And, a lot of people didn't know is that, that Elite Eight team that we lost to Mount Union in the playoffs, we had a lot of sophomores that were playing on that team, so we had it was a young team. So we weren't senior laden by any means. We had recruited really well for 2 years and, really was kind of at the pinnacle of, kind of starting to turn the corner, and obviously it showed that, the two guys that filled in after me were able to still have success. And I always tell people, I judge when you build something, does it fall apart right when the next person gets there, or does it take time? If it takes time, usually you've built it the right way.
Now, so you move on from Widener, you work your way back. You're on one side of Pennsylvania. you decide to come to you wanted to get the full experience. You come over to the Latrobe side of Pennsylvania. For those of you that don't know, that's where the Steelers, it's not St. Vincent, it's the other college in Latrobe, or Greensburg. I think it's actually in Greensburg. I don't think it's Latrobe, but it's basically that Westmoreland County out there. It's all the same to me. What was the difference? And I know there's a big win over another Pennsylvania kind of staple for the PSAC in Slippery Rock. There was a very big win during your time at Seton Hill over Slippery Rock. What factored into the decision to taking the Seton Hill job?
Well, there were two things that, were kind of critical pieces. One was, Dr. Boyle, the president that hired me, really was kind of the deciding factor. I believed in her vision. I sat down, on my interview with her, and, her passion, for the school, her passion for, her reasonings of wanting to move into the PSAC, because they were in the WIVIAC, and she was, very adamant about, and I remember her exact quote to me is, she's like, I want IUP to cringe when they come and play at our stadium, any president telling you that gets you excited and fired up. And, so I went back, I was still, I remember driving back and my wife's blowing my phone up, and she was like, because when I left, I told her that there's no way I'm taking the job because, I'm just going to use this to get our president, who is a good friend at Widener, to kind of, ante up a few things that we needed to get done. We needed a weight room innovation and some stuff I wanted to do at the stadium, financial aid. Like I had all these, things on my short list that I wanted to kind of get worked out. And so I didn't pick up for the first hour of the drive back. She knew that something was up. And when I finally picked up, all she said to me is, you're going to take the job if they offered it. And I go, well, not for sure. But, then I just like, babe, these people are amazing. The president. And I just went, on and on. And, by the time I got home, she was just like, I know if they offer it, you're going to take it. And I'm like, well, I said, I'm going to talk to our president. And it was kind of interesting. So my nephew played, wide receiver for Mount Union. Mm-hmm. So after that interview, I had promised him that I would come down to watch them play in the national championship game. So I'm actually driving, that weekend. I'm driving to Salem, mm-hmm. and I get the phone call from, Chris Snyder, the AD at Seton Hill, and I'm in the car. My kids are in there, and I'm trying to get them to quiet down, and and he offers me the job, and I remember this feeling of excitement, but I was like, I hate to do this to you, but I'm in the car with my family. Can I call you when I get to the hotel? And, gave me a time. I kind of told my wife and kind of decompress. We get to the hotel and, I just kind of called him up and said, hey, here's some things that, I think we would need to do for me to leave Widener, mm-hmm. and he went back to the president and, most of the things they said yes to, or a couple things they said no to, but the things they said no to, I threw on there just so they could say no and feel like they're not losing the battle. And they, wrote up a contract, and it was a 6-year contract. So I wanted to make sure that my kids could go to the same high school. So that was important. But to me, it said all the things I needed to know going into it initially, that they're serious about winning, because PSAC coaches aren't getting 6-year contracts. I know you got to be in the state for a little while, so some of the state schools are different, but private schools, certainly not. So that was a commitment that they made. And we had 35.4.5 scholarships, so basically 36 is the full, so it was all of the things that you could, imagine. And, mm-hmm. I remember talking to the Widener president, and he told me that, he thought it was a bad move. He thought there were going to be better jobs down the road for me. And he's a good friend, so he could talk to me this way. He's a former college coach. He was just like, the intel and the research I've done is just that, this is not a place that's going to be sustainable for Division II football, And I said, but they got 35 scholarships, and I got a 6-year contract, And then I said, look, if you can do these couple of things, then I will definitely, consider staying, And he could do a few of them and a few that he couldn't. And I just felt like PSAC, you got almost 36 scholarships. It's in Western PA, great football. So felt like I needed to take the leap of faith, and really, we battled our way to, that big win you're talking about. And, Coach Mahalik gives me grief every time I see him. He tells me I'm the reason why he retired because he lost to us. Yeah. So I said, you better not be telling your alums that, but it was a case where we were building it. And unfortunately, Dr. Boyle passed away. We got a new president. And, really in a matter of 2 years, the admissions director that hired me was gone. Financial aid director was gone. VP of enrollment. So you wake up one morning, you find yourself in a room feeling like you're in a room with a bunch of strangers, right? And the vision's not the same, So, so it was saddened because I do believe, that, they had the makings of being able to build something really, really special. But unfortunately, my vision and views and what me and Dr. Boyle talked about wasn't the same in terms of administration. So, Chris Snyder, for lack of a better term, I tell everyone, did me a favor. He knew I'm a pit bull, and I would have died on the job before I would have quit. And he, came in and, dismissed me in 2018 and, really kind of, in tears, so it meant something to me that, I meant something to the institution. I meant something to him, but he knew that, they needed to do something different. We just had, gone so far off the rails and with, cut scholarships and, the players just, not being happy and not being able to have success, so I learned a ton, in my time there, and it was a great experience, but, I wear my heart's on my sleeves, right? I made a lot of sacrifices to kind of help build that program. And we did some good things in our time there. That means that I couldn't go to, my son's senior day. I couldn't, be at my daughter's volleyball game. So all of those things hit me. So right after I got let go, man, I took probably about 2 months where I thought I was going to get out of coaching,
Wow.
and it was a funny story, that Dominican wife that I told you I married, so she was kind of working at the time. So I became like Mr. Mom, so I put the kids on the bus, clean and cook. So all of a sudden, about a week into this thing, my wife comes home one day and she's just like, look, I love that you're cooking. I love that you're cleaning. I love that you're putting the kids on the bus. It's great that you're experiencing things that you normally don't experience because usually right after the season, you're on the road recruiting. And she says, you got to go get a job. so now I'm like, so then I interviewed for a couple of jobs and, just was, scared off by some because I was like, it just had too much of a feel of what Seton Hill was currently, so I was very picky and selective in terms of, what I wanted that next move to be. So I remember going to the convention and one of my good friends, reached out and he offered me a job at the place where he was at. And he's like, look, I'll hang on to this thing until February, give you some time to kind of sort things out, So I was very appreciative. I said, yeah, I appreciate that. I said, I got a couple things in the, in the fire that I want to kind of work through. And then I'll get back to you, well, lo and behold, we get to February and he actually gets another job, and he calls me up and he's like, I'm like, look, I'm up for 2 head jobs. I interviewed for one. I got an interview for another one on Thursday. Let me get back to you because I think I want to get back on the horse to be a head coach. Neither one of those ended up working out, so I called him back and, he really kind of convinced me. He said, look, come here, help me build the program. I'll make you special teams coordinator. You'll get your room, you're coaching DBs. It'd be like old times, like it was at Lehigh, and, recharge your batteries and figure out what it is you want to do. And, man, it was a blessing because I coached some amazing kids that really kind of brought the joy back, brought the passion back, and I'm super excited. And then COVID hits.
Well, I was looking at the years here and I was like, oh man, 19 was a good one. It's recharging and here comes 20. It's gonna be a right hook.
No doubt. So that was tough.
And the interesting thing, this show is born because I'm sitting in Bethany, West Virginia, around all of the coaches, and I'm sitting here, my brain's thinking like, wow, this is the time where your baseball coaches are out recruiting Legion ball. Your basketball coaches are at the AAU tournaments. Your football coaches are most of the players are secure, but you're still as much as you can on the move. And I was talking to Justin Thomas, the baseball coach, and I remember saying to him, "Hey, what are you going to do for recruiting?" And he goes, "Oh man, we haven't really even thought about it. It's like a week. We were in, that 2 week. We're gonna do the curve. We're gonna do the curve." And I said, "Well, hey, I'm really looking to get back into doing a show. Why don't I have you on? We'll tell your story. The same thing you would tell. I'm going to ask you the questions I think a parent would want to know. Where'd you go to school? Why'd you get into coaching? And then we're going to talk about the programs. And then, here's the funny thing about a small school. Eventually, you're going to run out of coaches. So quickly, I realized I like this. I like talking to the coaches. Then we got into alumni. And, for 2 years, we did alumni. We did broadcasters. And we took a break. This Christmas, we took the month of January, and I'm sitting there, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to go back and interview coaches. I really had fun doing that. So let's see who's going to say yes. So here we are. 2020 happens. We got the yuck of it's finally, I think it's been declared over now. So we come out on the other side. That was a very long 2 weeks. And then 2022 comes, and we're here now at Albright. First, why the decision, and what are the short-term and long-term goals for you and the program?
So the decision, was really, I got to a point, as COVID kind of wrapped up, there's a brief, very brief gap of probably like 6 weeks in my, resume. I actually resigned from, Bucknell. I was a special teams coordinator and secondary coach. And during COVID, I actually got my insurance license. So I am a licensed PNC, property and casualty and life insurance. And I can also sell health insurance. So in the time that we were locked out of our office, like I can't sit still, right? And you kind of hit it on the head. I'm so used to recruiting, I'm doing this, like you're moving to the next thing. When COVID like shut us down, like I was going stir crazy. So I was like, okay, what else can I do? Because you just don't know. And I, somehow stumbled across this insurance thing, and it was intriguing to me, and connected with some people, and took the test, passed it, and got my license. So at the time when I resigned from Bucknell, I kind of thought that I was done with coaching. Right, I felt like I came back in. I loved it. I'm leaving on a high note. My passion was back. But maybe it was time to turn the page. Maybe COVID was eye-opening, because at that point we didn't know when COVID was going to end. I didn't know if we were going to have a season. Are they going to furlough us? I got to figure out how I'm going to feed my family. So I got involved with insurance. I was all set to purchase a insurance Allstate agency just outside of Philadelphia. And literally a week or two before, the deal fell through. So now I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I've resigned. I don't have a job. I'm kind of trying to sort through these pieces, and yes, okay, well, I'll go the independent insurance route. So I'm kind of putting some things together, and I'm just about to kind of sign on and dive into this independent thing when I get a call from my buddy again. And he's like, look, our DC just got the job at Pitt. Is there any way? I know that you told me you were done and you were moving on. Is there any way? Yes. So before he could get the words out. So I came back for that spring. We made it to the Patriot League championship game, but unfortunately we graduated a bunch of seniors. So we were going to have to kind of rebuild it all over again. So it was just kind of the fun part of kind of helping him to help get that culture pointed in the right direction. We had a tough season, but felt like we built something that, in a year or two, they were going to be able to be pretty competitive in the league. We beat Lehigh, we beat Colgate, beat Lehigh actually twice, which they hadn't done. They were the seniors that, were on the squad, had never beaten Lehigh and Colgate. So we got to do some neat things that way. And, I kind of got the bug back again. It was kind of like, do you want to, lead a team again and build something? And I said, you know what? The only way I would do it is it's got to be, a good location in terms of recruiting. Got to have tremendous support from the administration. And it has to be a place that understands and values, a football team being successful. Well, it doesn't get any better than this place. And in fact, going back to where you initially kind of backed this question, when I was at, Widener, we got pretty darn good, right? We were hands down, there's us and Del Val, and, we went 2-1 against Del Val. So I would say we were kind of the cream of the crop, but it was a case where our, whole, process of building it, the only team that I feared in the league was Albright, because we never could beat them on financial aid. I mean, in 3 years that I was at Widener, we never beat them. Now, we beat them on some kids. We convinced them to pay more, so that was, something that I was like, wow. I mean, this, when I got the call that, hey, Albright opened up, I'm like, I really got to look into this because they're in a great location, with my background recruiting wise, we can branch out and recruit a little bit more national, but we also, within 2 to 3 hours of our campus, we got, some amazing football talent. And, facility wise, when I got here, they were pretty good. Kind of had some ideas and some things that, we could do to make it even better. And, that happened faster than I thought, which again, goes and speaks to, our president, Jackie Fetro is amazing. I mean, in a lot of ways, reminds me of, Dr. Boyle. She kind of quickly told me how this city, the campus, the community is different when Albright football wins, and she wants to get back to that. So you couple all of those things, it really was kind of a no-brainer, especially after I interviewed and just when I met, with the people, and just their excitement, in terms of, what football means to this campus and this community, really, really kind of blew me away, and it's been exciting. We no doubt knew our struggles and knew that, in some cases we were going to have to start from scratch. But, we've made some really, really good progress, both facility wise and culture wise. Super excited about where our kids are at going into the summer.
Now, what is your message for the fan base and the alumni for the 2023 season?
What I told them when I took over is that I can never put, a number on number of wins, but what I promised them we would do is that we're going to play championship caliber ball, right? We're going to be, a tough bunch that's going to play hard. We're going to be consistent. Our mission and ultimate goal, what I tell recruits is I want 100% graduation, and I want each class to win at least one MAC title, right? Those are lofty goals that we're going to chase. I think that, we are getting closer each day to being able to kind of build something really special. So as I shared with them, I said, just be patient and trust the process. If you can do that, we will get there, and I also challenged them and said, we got to get you involved. We need you to roll your sleeves up. The renovations and the things that we're doing, those don't happen on their own, especially at our level, right? They're all, owner driven. So I, kind of really challenged them in the aspect of let's link arms. I promise you that, we're going to, recruit, build, and develop a product that you're going to be proud to be associated with. But we're going to need, you to be patient with us as we navigate, really kind of getting back into a space of, competing with, the Del Vals of the world that have really done a great job the last few years and kind of have a stranglehold on this conference, so we got some work to do, in terms of, chasing that down, but I think our kids are excited and they better be because I, scheduled a heck of a schedule for them. So we got our work cut out for us, especially early on. But I just remember going back to my Widener days. I think one of the reasons why we got good is we were playing the Ithacas of the world. We went up and played Alfred State. We played some people and got our nose a little bit bloodied, and then our kids figured out how to not get their nose bloody, and we got pretty good. So we're going to kind of follow that same formula. I'm excited here because we do have resources, and our administration is committed to the students, so dialing back with COVID, we dialed back our tuition 45%, so we are, in the realm of what a lot of state schools cost. They do a tremendous job in terms of merit scholarship money. I can honestly tell you that, in the, 15, 16 months, I guess I've been on the job here, we have not really lost a financial aid battle. I think there's maybe one that I can think of off the top of my head. So I think those are the things that are going to allow us to be very competitive. We have to continue to do our part as coaches. When you look at the records, that scares a lot of kids away. So what our recruiting has been about is we want guys that are like me. Like, I'm rolling my sleeves up. I'm excited. I know we're going to win here and be successful. So I want to find players that believe in themselves. They're going to believe in the process. They want to get a great education, and they want to be developed as men, which is something that's really important to our organization.
Coach, what's the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
You got to go through something to get something, right? It's something that I tell our players all the time, and I think, my personal life, my professional life, all of those things, kind of embody that, and I think, especially in this day and age where, we kind of live in a society that, everybody should get a trophy for participating, right? And I grew up in an era where, if you didn't win and you finished in last, they told you, so, so I think, getting them to understand that, failure is not fatal, and you are willing to, use a failure to propel you to success, then that's the biggest difference. I think sometimes people fail and they give up and quit, and what, we do inside of our organization is really to kind of get our young people to understand with our core principles of, what we believe in here and how we're going to build them up, and the 4 pillars of success that we believe in, developing principal leaders, developing our players physically, developing them mentally, developing them emotionally. It all ties to your ability to be able to handle a world that's very random, and that's where my passion lied going back to 1994. And it still, lies there, and those things still stand the test of time, so for me, I'm super excited about this opportunity. I'm super appreciative of you giving us this platform, and I know that not every coach probably took you up on it. And for those coaches, shame on them, because I think any opportunity we get to be able to speak on our sport in particular, but also to speak on Division III and what we do, we should soak it up. So I really appreciate you doing that.
Well, thank you, Coach. The last question is kind of goofy the way it's worded. I've asked everybody, was there a question you were expecting to get? And if so, how would you have answered it?
Well, usually I get one of 2 questions. So I'm going to actually give you 2. One is, they usually, I get asked, hey, why were you so successful at Seton Hill, and why were you so successful at Widener, and why did you not have the same success at Seton Hill? And then the second is how did you score 90 points on a team in a game? What went into that, and did you plan that? Did you and and my answer to the first one is really kind of, I kind of tied it in. We just, my administration and people change, and I don't fault them, because they didn't hire me, so the pretenses that I was hired under, and what we were trying to establish and build wasn't necessarily aligned with what they believed in. And it took me a little while to be able to be a big enough man to stand in front of you, because when you get let go, there's a lot of emotions that are tied to it, and for me, I really kind of grew from it. It certainly made me a better person. Me and Chris Snyder, we text back and forth ever so often. He was very happy when I got this job. So our friendship is working to get back intact. But it's a case where that's just kind of how life is. Change is never good for anyone. And if you have too much of change, it makes it very difficult to adapt. So that would be kind of my answer to that first one. The answer to the second one, which I spent years kind of defending it, because it was a case where a lot of people thought, because the backdrop behind the 90-0 game, we're playing Wilkes at Widener the year before. We go to Wilkes, and we probably could not have played a worse game. And we were pretty good. We were kind of on the ascend, and we lose to Wilkes. So that drops us to 9-1. But at the end of the season, we're up 21, I think 6 or something like that on Del Val. And if we win that game, we still win the conference and we go to the playoffs. And we lose, they come back and they beat us and we lose and we don't get an at-large bid. So we get a bowl game. And our kids were like, beside themselves. And I just kind of, at the halftime of the bowl game, because we were kind of sleepwalking, nobody wanted to be there. And I kind of, went in and just went, ballistic on them. And one of the things I said to them is that, you controlled your own destiny. You're the one that went up to Wilkes and you dropped a goose egg. You guys didn't play well. You didn't take them seriously and they beat you. I said, so you got what you deserved. Mm-hmm. I said, so the fact that the committee did not vote you in your strength of schedule, you needed to beat Del Valle, not only to win the league, but also for strength of schedule, because at the time the MAC wasn't that strong. And so the kids remember that. They remember that. And when we got to Wilkes, we were getting good again, and they had to come to our place, and we probably had our best week of practice. And it wasn't just the starters, like the backup guys were locked in. Mm-hmm. And I think it was the fear factor of we were really good and all they wanted was another shot at Del Valle, at the end of the season, and they played extremely well. And we pulled guys out. I mean, I had a fifth string scale tailback score a touchdown. Like it was just one of those crazy days. And, I remember reaching out to their head coach and, kind of trying to apologize. It took him a little while to kind of, get over it because I could see the optics of it. But it was a case where it was not something. It
wasn't planned. Done maliciously. It was just the game playing itself out.
Yes. And our kids played hard and played well. So that part, really kind of hurt me a little bit because I don't think people saw how well our kids played. Mm-hmm. I think they just saw that, you guys, you were taking advantage of it. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like they fumbled like a kickoff that rolled into the end zone. We jumped like one of those. So it was just like all of the things. We were good and we were going to win the game, but all of the things just kind of aligned and it kind of got, out of control. So I spent some time really and that's usually when people go through my bio, that sticks out, and they're just like, and it's kind of like, they want to know, like, did you really, and my sidebar to that is, I don't think anyone called Urban Meyer when I was the defensive coordinator at the Citadel and they beat us 89-24. I said,
nobody called him out on that.
The call. So, so it's a case where like, that was like, I'm like, I'm catching all of this. I said, and this goes on all the time. And I'm sure that they're not getting bombarded with things like this. And I just kind of went to our kids and said, look, I said, I will take the heat of it. You just keep playing. You just stay focused. And they did. And it led to a magical season that unfortunately ended up, at Mount Union, not being able to kind of close it out. But that was a special bunch and I was happy for them.
Well, Coach, I think that's a perfect place for us to stop. I really appreciate you taking the time. I will tell you that we're in the works right now. We're going to 10 games this year. Nice. We're going to go to 10 games across different conferences. That we got some Empire 8 schools. We have some MAC schools. We have the PAC. I played in the PAC, so I got to talk to those guys. We got the OAC, and I might make my way out to North Central. I've been talking to Coach Spencer, and we're trying to see if maybe that's a heck of a drive. But now Reading, Pennsylvania isn't as far of a drive from me in Morgantown, West Virginia, so that might be feasible to do.
Well, you have an open invitation, my man, if you want to come out for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. And for those of you that are sticking around, you know what comes next. It's the editorial with Serenity Brown. I promise we're not talking about moving from the beach to the north. We're moving from the north to the beach is where we're heading. Coach, thank you very much, and we'll be right back.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. That's Serenity Brown, and this is the editorial with Serenity Brown. So, what do you got for me this week? Coach Isaac Collins of Albright.
It was long.
Up by you, huh? Probably not.
I don't know.
To me, New York is that's you up there. It's kind of like it's kind of like everybody that I meet. You're from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. That's all you. The whole fucking gambit.
It was good, but there is one pressing issue about the interview that I'm going to point out. I would never move from the beach to Philly. So,
no, I don't think you. I didn't. I think you would. I'm pretty sure in the episode I said, I don't think that's a.
It's a crime.
It's not. It's dedication is what it is. It's dedication to your craft. No, I had a really good time. It was a very long interview, but it was one of those, as we've had a little bit longer interviews in the past, sometimes some people are going to give you 30 minutes, some people are going to give you an hour. Coach Collins was very forthcoming with me that maybe a half hour wasn't going to be long enough, and I appreciate it. I appreciate him taking the time.
Sometimes a half an hour just doesn't.
Well, and it's nice.
Not enough time to get your story out.
I mean, he gave us his time, and I appreciate that more than some of these coaches realize. I enjoy. Actually, I did an interview not last week, but the week before, and at the end of the interview, the coach asked me, "So you really enjoy doing these?" And it was kind of like a shocked, quite like the way that he asked it. It was almost like you enjoy doing this,
Yeah.
And it's one of those.
You do.
I really do. I enjoy talking about D3 football, and I enjoy finding out what makes these coaches kind of tick. Also, it's pretty cool to be moving into another conference. So
I think
now
you just like talking.
I do. But I also enjoy the fact that, we started with the OAC, and we had the PAC. We do have for those of you that don't know, we have the Big Ten is thrown in there. Penn State is on that list. And then, now we're moving into the MAC, the Division III version of the MAC. The Empire 8's coming up, the Liberty League, the Landmark, we have a lot of really good coaches, and this was kind of the first really outside of the comfort zone. Not outside of the comfort zone, that's a poor way to say that, but outside
I understood what you meant, though.
Yeah.
I understand.
So as you've noticed for the past couple weeks, I've thrown top fives at this one here. We are going to do that again. First, I want to thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, really appreciate you. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Don't miss out on any of the episodes. Go back and watch a couple if you are so inclined. You can also, for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and everywhere else that you can get your podcast, thank you. Please keep listening. If you haven't yet, hit that little bell thing so you get the notifications. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. The only one that's different is the Instagram page, which is Dingo_talk. And this past weekend was Father's Day. So if my dad actually watches this, he'll find out that I wished him happy Father's Day, and it was his birthday on Sunday. So happy birthday, you're 64, you're old. Yeah, I think that covers it. You're old, and I appreciate you still being around. So I think that's the nicest way to say you're glad that you're around for your 64th trip around the sun. All right, so top 5 Disney villains.
No idea, you told me.
Told her and she didn't do it. Here's the shock of the century.
Okay. All right, we're going to continue, though. Go ahead.
Now, for those of you that watched last week, I remember being asked if I was going to specifically, in advance, give you the question. I don't even know what time it is. I think it's 6:30, almost 7 o'clock at night. So 7 hours ago, I asked you to pick 7.
Yeah.
It was noon. 7 hours ago, I asked you to pick 5 names, which was not as hard, you would think, as picking the 3 names from the grouping of your major that you went and spent money in college for.
Are we going to get to it?
No, because I don't even want to do it. We'll see you next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.